Facts. Minister of National Revenue claims Wiebe Door Services Ltd. did not pay its EI or CPP for its employees from 1979 to 1981. In the original case, the tax court ruled that the workers were under insured employment. Wiebe contends that they were hiring independent contractors, while Minister of National Revenue claims that they are employees. Wiebe's legal counsel admitted that the assessment for 1979 was correct and that the two persons were employees. However, they claim in 1980 and 1981 that the 12 people assessed were independent contractors. Wiebe Door Services is in the business of installing doors and repairing overhead doors in Calgary, and 75% of its business comes from the repair side. Each door installer and repair has a specific understanding that they would be running their own businesses and would be responsible for their own taxes and contributions to workers' compensation. However, Massey v. Crown Life Insurance Co. sets a precedent in stating such an agreement in itself is not determinative of the relationship between the parties, and a court must carefully examine the facts in order to come to its own conclusion. Meaning, when an employer hires an independent contractor, they cannot treat them like an employee and avoid CPP and EI contributions.
Hi, sir. Are you an employee of Wiebe Door Services or an independent contractor?
Who's asking?
The Minister of National Revenue, actually.
Oh shit.
Issues. In the original case, were the workers for Wiebe employees or independent contractors during the years 1979 to 81? This is done through the fourfold test, which questions, how much control did Wiebe have over the workers? Did the worker own their own tools? Was there a chance of profit or risk of loss for the worker? And was the worker's role an integral part of the business? The appeal case. Is the integration test appropriate for only high-skilled workers? Did the tax court apply the fourfold test appropriately?
The tax court's decision was to uphold an assessment against Wiebe Door Services due to missing payments from Canada Pension Plan contribution and unemployment insurance for the years 1980 and 1981. For 1979, the appeal was dismissed because Wiebe admitted that they had two employees.
So do you have a boss?
No, I work for myself.
Okay. How do you get your clients then?
Wiebe assigns the jobs for me, but like I said, I work for myself.
Okay, so how much control does this Wiebe company have over you?
Like I told you, I work for myself, man, but they assign jobs for me. I can refuse or accept any call, but the only thing they do is give me the jobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you own your own tools?
Yeah, I do, and my own vehicle.
Okay. Do you have any chance to profit or lose from these operations?
Yeah, so depending on how many jobs I take per day, I can profit from that. If I screw up, then I have to pay that with my own pocket, out of my own pocket.
Oh wow, that would kind of suck.
Yeah.
How about, do you find yourself an integral part to the business?
Dude, that place wouldn't run without me, man.
Wow.
The reason for this decision, Wiebe argues that their workers were independent contractors. However, the tax court had assessed that the workers were actually employees when utilizing the fourfold test. The results of the control test was indecisive as Wiebe's workers had some degree of control over their business, such as accepting or refusing a job. However, Wiebe also had some degree of control over the workers in terms of job assignments and contractual agreements. In testing for ownership of tools and chance of profit or risk of loss, this worked in favor of Wiebe's case, assuming that the workers are independent contractors. In utilizing the integration test, Wiebe's workers served against Wiebe's case. The test assumes that the workers form an integral part in Wiebe's business and should therefore be considered employees. This was used by the tax court judge when making the decision to uphold the assessment against Wiebe. The final decision was to set aside the application of the decision made by the tax court judge in respect to the 1980 and 1981 tax years. The Court of Appeal then made a decision to pass the matter back to the tax court judge for further determination based on the reasons stated. The reason for this decision, the Court of Appeal judges investigated into the tax court's application of the fourfold test and found that the tax court made an error in applying the integration test in the case of highly skilled workers, which was not supportable. The Court of Appeal stated they cannot engage in examining the evidence any further unless the evidence was so obvious that it would be ridiculous to conclude anything else.
The judges in the case of Wiebe set the precedent that each doctrine of the fourfold test should not be looked at in isolation, rather, they should be looked at as general guidelines when determining one's employment relationship. Another precedent is also the integration test, which is seen as relevant even though the workers don't possess a high degree of professional skill.
The case Ontario versus Saugus Industries uses the precedents established in Wiebe. The initial case started when Canadian Tire dropped Saugus Industries as a supplier of car seats because of a bribe that was made to the head of Canadian Tire's automotive division. This case looks at whether the director of Canadian Tire was responsible to the wrongful act or whether it was the work of the independent contractor that made the bribe. Like Wiebe, the case discusses the factors of the fourfold test and references the precedents established in Wiebe that all the factors of the test should be used as general guidelines when assessing the overall relationship.
So after that long and agonizing court case, what do you think could have been done differently?
I don't know, you tell me.
Okay, so I think both parties should have stated their intentions at the start of the work relationship. And then I think you should have put it all into writing and got looked over by legal advisement on both parties, just so you're aware of like your tax obligations on either side. If in an employment relationship, either party must notify that there's a change, like what happened to you in the years of 1979 to 1980, when you went from being an employee to an independent contractor.
The case of Wiebe Door is a good example to businesses and independent contractors of what can happen if an employment relationship is not clearly defined and documented. What is outlaid in the contract must be followed. That being said, if the contract defined the relationship as that of an independent contractor, then the person must be treated like one. When businesses draft work contracts, it is important to get it approved by a lawyer so there are no flaws that could potentially lead to an expensive lawsuit or confusion between the parties.
So after that long and agonizing court case, what ethical issues do you think need to be considered here?
I guess for me, I would say businesses, employees, and independent contractors have a duty to the government to pay the correct amount of tax and clarify any confusion that may arise.
Yeah, that's correct.
Alright, sweet. So are we done here?
Yeah, that's it.
Alright, man. I don't want to ever see you again.